Rupert says, in a time to remember the sacrifice of veterans both alive and now gone. And Flynn, who says, he teaches my modern Italy paper this year at Otago Uni. Great progressor. I think we know what you're saying. I'm taking the piss a little bit.
On his comments on Anzac Day, I haven't missed a dawn service since I was 15. I've travelled the world and gone to places that New Zealanders have fought overseas. Has often been a touchstone of where I've travelled to. It's obviously really, really important to me. I hold it up when compared to other commemorations, like America has Veterans Day, Armistice Day in the UK, all of that sort of thing. The thing that I sort of cling to, because I'm not yay war, it's a celebration, all of this sort of stuff. It's not. For me, it's a mourning. Like there are two touchstones for me in the commemoration of Anzac Day. It's to look at the horror and the waste of World War One. The trap that people fell into was that nationalism, the jingoism. We fight for king and country, all of the big adventure overseas, and it was just horror. People threw young New Zealand lives away, and that's why we remember. That's why the phrase is "lest we forget." Lest we forget, or we'll do this all again.
It is different, because you see in those times as well when people had no idea of what they were going to. Their touchstone for war were comic books and patriotism, and go over there and give them a good slapping sort of thing. And then they went there, and I mean, obviously, none of us have been in anything like that kind of situation. The closest I think we can do is maybe watch a very well-made video or documentary, documentary on, for example, Gallipoli. And when you see it done accurately, you're like, what the fuck? If anybody had have known what they were walking up to, there would have been no volunteers. Whereas today, I'm interested because today, now this could just be Trump, because Trump just lies always, saying the other day that the uptake to become a member of the military forces is up significantly in America. And I do wonder if that is true, now that we all have a much clearer idea as to what war's all about. Under a Trump presidency, if that's true, what does that say about the people joining up? What does that say about American society? I'll probably Google it while you comment to see if it is true or not, because he could just be full of shit. He does that so often.
The other theme that runs through Anzac Day for me is obviously World War II, which couldn't be more different from World War I if it tried. It was a struggle against an almost cartoonishly evil bad guy, and just seems, by its difference, a more righteous struggle. And then I'm not saying we went to war because we knew what was happening to the Jews, but certainly at the end of it, when you find out the true horrors of what was going on inside Nazi Germany, it seems like a very justified struggle. And I think a lot of countries cling to that of like, this is the one that we were the white hats, the good guys, and we've stood up for international freedom and that sort of thing. And that kind of held the world together for a while. A lot of bad shit happened under that justification. Absolutely. The Cold War had a lot of nasty shit going on. We're propping up fucking bad guys and dictators, and New Zealand has never 100% got it right. We for every Korea, we had a Malayan emergency. We had our involvement in Vietnam and that sort of thing. But I think by having a day like this and anchoring it around the landings at Gallipoli, I think this is the only war commemoration that centers around a loss. It isn't like this is the time that we took the mountain and we won the day. This is the day that we invaded somebody else's country and got our fucking asses kicked. And that's what it is to me. Like it's understanding the reasons why we did what we did, right or wrong. And it's recognizing, I guess, what people can do. Again, good or bad. Yeah. For every heroic story, there's one of somebody coming back with no arms and legs, and it's sad. There's nothing heroic in that. And I get really, really touchy when people do make Anzac day into a jingoistic thing.
Mm.
You know, I stand there and I think, like, I'll go to 3 places tomorrow. I'll be at dawn service at the Cenotaph in Dunedin. I'll go to the Soldiers Memorial out on the peninsula, which of course looks out over the harbour where a lot of the troop ships left. And then I will go to the Baxter Memorial, which is a newer memorial here in Dunedin, commemorating a conscientious objector who was subjected to torture.
Yeah, horrific.
You know, that's the thing. Lest we forget means everything. It's not just the heroic stories. It's not just the Charles Uphams and the winning the Victoria Cross. It's the times that New Zealand forces went into a Palestinian village and murdered everybody. We were not the white hats in that example.
Mm.
So you've got to keep that stuff in mind, or you repeat it.
Yeah, we really do have to get some representatives on for the Archibald Baxter story at some stage, because that's a story that I don't think enough New Zealanders know that story. I think that needs to be. We need to know it better. And Rachel says military sign-ups, maybe they are hungry and homeless. Yeah, maybe. 12.5%. I just found that article straight away. So, yeah, it's interesting that people will have a much clearer view of what war looks like today, you know, through mass media. And now they've got Trump in charge. And if the numbers are going up like that, 12.5%, I think even that in and of itself is an interesting commentary of where America's at right now. All of a sudden, people want to sign up to fight under Trump. What does that mean? Because there's going to be no rules? Or is it the patriotic thing to do to make sure they keep Trump in check? I don't know. It's an interesting dynamic as to why.
I think it comes to, like, the American military has been finding it really hard to recruit for decades now, because they were up to their eyeballs in Afghanistan and Iraq. And people were seeing veterans come back and not be looked after. And it was a struggle, you know, like 20 years in Afghanistan. Like that makes a lot of sense to sign up in the wake of the Twin Towers falling, and you're angry and you want to defend your country and go to where the guys that did it lived. 20 years later, like there are people that would have been signing up for the military with it. They grew up in a world where the Twin Towers didn't exist.
Yeah.
You know, they never had it, signing up at 18 and stuff like that. It wasn't seen as appealing. More or less, kind of America's at a peacetime footing now. They don't have as much of an active combat operations overseas at the moment. So at that point, their whole thing of like, well, we'll pay for your college education seems to be a lot more appealing when you can go, well, I can complete my course and not get blown up by an IED in a valley that I can't describe. You know, so I think I would disconnect that from Trump. I don't think a whole bunch of MAGA people are signing up for the military. I could be wrong, but yeah, that's what I think it is.